Oh, they did.
Welcome, everybody, to the City Council meeting for February 3rd. If you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Thank you, everyone. All council members are present this evening. Everybody have a chance to look over the meeting agenda for tonight. Any additions or subtractions or changes otherwise? Councilmember Sandberg?
I would like to receive a report from the Economic Development Committee that met, the subcommittee that met last week, I think on January 29th. Seemed like it was a matter of great urgency since the special meeting notice came out the day before, and so I was wondering what was the results of that subcommittee meeting, and does it relate to any of the upcoming agenda items, either February 10th or February 17th?
I don't know. Are we prepared with a report on that tonight?
Well, we're actually having an executive session, Mayor, to talk about that very matter. And so to the extent that council would also like to discuss it out of executive session, that's certainly up to you.
Okay. We'll see what arises from that conversation. Anything else?
For the projected agenda or tonight's agenda?
Just tonight's agenda.
Okay, nothing
No?
else.
Deputy Mayor Spivey?
Great, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to add a RFA discussion onto tonight, if we could,
Would you like to do it before the executive session?
please.
Okay.
Thank
I
you.
assume everybody's in favor of hearing that. Anyone else? Changes on the meeting for tonight? No? How about projected agenda? Councilmember Sandberg?
So the city manager provided us the notice of intent to offer the front nine of Wayne Golf Course for sale, and it says that the council would be, or their staff would be ready to discuss this potential purchase of property in executive session at the next regular city council meeting, and I'd also like to have a public hearing on that. I think there are items that we can discuss in public, or at least give the public notice so that they have the opportunity to come address council on their thoughts regarding the purchase of the front nine.
Okay. I think based upon, I don't think we're going to see any information tonight, potentially in an upcoming executive session. So depending on what's discussed there, we would then let the public notice of what we would be discussing at that time, I guess. So at this point, I don't know if there's anything to put on the agenda. There could be, but let's take a pause on that until we understand what's discussed.
So are we gonna discuss this memo tonight in executive session?
Okay. That wasn't the plan.
Okay. I'm just...
This is the first time I've actually seen it.
Okay. I'm just worried about the time sensitivity of this because it's the written notice of their intent to offer it to the city, to offer the front nine portion to the city for sale, and we have 45 days to respond.
Yeah.
And so I would like to have plenty of opportunity, at least timely opportunity for the public to comment so that we're not up against that 45-day deadline.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know that we could schedule it for next week. I think it would be most likely the following week. I don't know, Joe, what your thoughts might be on regarding timing.
I'll defer to Bob on that because it involves just more than me and probably the people on staff that's doing the legal aspects of it. I can address fairly quickly, but there are other aspects that require work by other staff members, so I'll defer to Bob on that.
Can I say something? Yeah.
Well, I think if the question is simply a public comment opportunity, certainly that could be done at any meeting, and it may be done this evening, given the...
Based on the sign-ups I have and the address.
The audience, correct.
We might have a few comments, right?
So not knowing sort of which direction council would like to go until we have that discussion, it's difficult to determine what kind of staff resources are necessary to accommodate that request, but we can certainly schedule a public comment period for a meeting in the future if you would like, or just simply allow that to occur during citizen comment opportunities.
Sure, absolutely. Look, and most likely, if we did schedule something, like you said, time sensitive, maybe the 17th. But Councilmember Lamb.
I was going to say what the city manager said, that, I mean, the public has now heard this announcement. It's now a public document that they've made an offer of, the owners of the front nine of the Wayne Golf Course has made an offer of sale to the city. And so I think anybody can comment on that tonight. Anybody can comment that at any of our meetings. And so I think what we're talking about in terms of scheduling a meeting is sort of what tools we would have to be available, but the public is welcome and encouraged tonight and at every subsequent meeting to let us know their feelings on that.
That's right. I agree. Great. Councilmember Sandberg.
Well, I just like the idea of establishing an agenda item for a date certain, knowing that the public can come and comment at any time before that. But if we had a date certain, and if next week is too early, then the February 17th would be a good meeting. It's neither one of the next two meetings is a particularly full agenda. I think that there are documents that we can consider up here, and I think the public would be very interested in the conversation that we would have, and that any a conversation that we have up here doesn't necessarily have to occur in executive session or put us in a situation where we are unable to negotiate or reveal some of our position. So I would like to see, instead of us just discussing this in executive session, I would like to us also discuss this here on the dais, and February 17th would be a good time.
Well, I'll leave it to the city manager to find the appropriate time. And at this, I'd like to feel that there's more direction of what we're actually talking about. And since this is the first time I've seen this, and the first time you've seen it as well, Tom? Yeah. So let us digest this, and maybe next week we'll have more direction of what we could put on the agenda to actually discuss. Yes.
I do believe that we should put it on the 17th. We're going to have an executive session next week about it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to direct staff the following week. I think we should talk and tell the citizens what's going on here, because we have a lot of citizens that are very concerned about this issue.
Yeah. So I'm going to be out of town because it is midwinter break, but I did talk to the
That's right.
Deputy Mayor, and he will be in town, so he'll be here for that meeting. And Tris, you acted like you might not.
That's right. It's
be around either.
It's midwinter break.
So
I'm not here for midwinter break.
if you got 5, then you're.
I think as long as there's enough people here to discuss it. Mr. Mayor, if I might.
Yeah.
So I think that, I mean, the main issue here, and I think it's really important that members of the public understand this, that a right of first offer is not a right of first refusal. So what we have is not the ability to, it simply means that they notify the city of the opportunity to make an offer on the property. The city does not have a right to block the sale to somebody else. It simply has a right to make an offer to purchase the property under the terms of the agreement. So I think the real issue and the real conversation is if there is a desire on the council and in the community to buy it, it's a question of money. And that's something that is, that's really the rub of the question, is not can we block it or can we do something else. It's, they're telling us it's for sale, and they're giving us a first opportunity. They're giving the citizens of Bothell a first opportunity through their city to buy it. And so the question is, a financial one, not really a one. I mean, I think there's I think when we invite the public to comment, it's important that people understand the reality on the ground and understand the context of that conversation. And I think I want to be honest with people that that's the issue in front of us is, we could say, hey, this is the best conservation project in the world. If we don't have the money to do it, it isn't going to happen. But as we've seen with the North Creek Forest, I think there's a lot of ways that citizens can come together and do that. And that was a project that the city has helped facilitate and has helped put money into for appraisals and worked on grants. And ultimately, the majority of that forest has been saved largely by citizen-led efforts that the city council has supported and enabled. So that was just my thought of when we say, I want to have a meeting and I want to do something about it. I think it's important that people understand what the real issue is and kind of what the crux of it is, rather than invite that the city has some power in this situation that it may not. I mean, the power that we have is the ability to make a first offer on the property.
And in light of Prop 1 and its lack of success, that'd be interesting. Before you, I know you want to comment, but Councilmember Evans hasn't had a chance. Councilmember Evans.
Well, it's my understanding there's an item coming back to the Planning Commission for consideration that involves some of this property, and I think that's scheduled in February for the Planning Commission to look at least that item. And I guess at some point I'd be interested in the bigger picture. What's the status of the entire property there, the golf course and all those things. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of information that hopefully staff can gather for us or provide for us somewhere down the road here. And I appreciate the fact that they've given us they've made us aware it's for sale. Again, we don't have the first right of refusal on it, but so there is a time period that we want to be sensitive to and consider it. So I think there's a lot of things here coming together pretty quickly that we need to hear about and then go from there.
Good. Thanks. Tom? Councilmember Agnew?
Yeah, I actually think there's a lot more to this than meets the eye. The front 9 is a conservation easement. They've been granted that with stipulations to that. I think we have to look at all of this. I think what's coming to the Planning Commission is 4.5 acres that are on the clubhouse and the parking lot, and they want to rezone that. I think that's what's coming to the Planning Commission. That has absolutely nothing to do with the front or the back 9. I think when they made the conservation easement, they had nothing. It had nothing in stipulation to stop or halt the sale of the back 9, and that's another issue. So I think there's a lot here that we're not looking at yet that we need to, and I think the citizens need to be aware of all that.
So can I ask you a clarifying question, Councilor Agnew?
Sure.
On you just said that, or I mean, what I understood you to say was that the option to purchase isn't for the front 9; it's only for the 4.5 acres.
Well, it's unclear in here. It says in here, if I'm reading it properly, the intent for the front 9. Attached is a notice of intent to offer for the sale the front 9 portion of the Wayne Golf Course to the city. It actually says nothing about the parking lot or the clubhouse, and they can change that and rezone that and do whatever they want to with that, according to the easement.
I think so. When I'm reading the letter, which is on page 2, it says this letter serves as written notice of our intent. And is it okay if I read this?
Sure.
It says this letter serves as written notice of our intent to offer for sale the front 9 portion of Wayne Golf Course, defined as the property, which I think is the actual golf course itself that's subject to the development. That we own the development rights to. Is that right?
I understand it as being an offer for the front 9 and the clubhouse
and
area.
The clubhouse.
And there
and
are 3 distinct areas:
yeah.
the front 9, clubhouse, and the back.
And the back 9. So what's being offered to us is the clubhouse area, which, as you correctly noted, is the subject of a pending rezone request before the Planning Commission, but also the golf course itself, the front 9, which, as you also pointed out, we actually own the development rights to, so we would be buying something that we own, or that we own the development rights to. We don't own the real property, but we own the development rights. So what's being offered is everything on the, I guess, south of that they own, south of the. I'm blanking on the of Juanita.
Sammamish River.
No.
North of it.
No, because the
Almost
river
everything
bisects it.
South
No.
of it.
Wayneita Way. I think
It'd be south of Wayneita Way. Everything south of Wayneita Way is being offered. They're giving us in this notice of the right of first refusal,
I think it's.
or excuse me, the right of first notice.
Yeah, I think we just need to clarify
Yeah,
this.
agreed. And maybe that'll happen in exec, and we can do that. But.
Okay, great. So I think we've had a good discussion, or somewhat. Any other items on the projected agenda from anyone? Nope, seeing none. I do have, at this point, 3 visitors' sign-up sheets, and I'll be open to taking more. This is an opportunity for people from the public to address council for 3 minutes. And so first on the sign-up sheet is Diane Castens, I believe.
Hi, I'm Diane Castens. One Bothell is working to get funds for land acquisition to preserve Wayne land as a recreational corridor as outlined in the city's comprehensive plan over many years. This land can be used for many purposes, as a recreational space, for community events, recreational fields, hiking and biking trails, dog parks, and water activities. It has a measurable scenic value to the population of Bothell and the surrounding areas as open green space, wildlife habitat, and the Sammamish River and fish habitat that it provides. This land has already been recognized as important through the purchase of development rights on the Front Nine in the 1996 conservation easement was established for the residents of Bothell and King County to enjoy the open space in perpetuity. The conservation easement also outlines rights for the city to acquire Wayne Golf Course. However, the city hasn't purchased the land despite outlining its desire to acquire the land in many of its plans. You can appreciate the proposed plan for 76 townhomes on the Wayne Golf Course clubhouse area is selling the front or the back nine to development is highly undesirable for the community and for our continued enjoyment of the recreational corridor. Over the past several weeks, we've been reaching out to members with the hopes of partnering with them to help exercise its existing right to purchase Wayne Golf Course. We understand this is not a simple undertaking, but we're a large group, and we have the support of Senator McCaufel and the King County Councilman Rob Dombrowski and many others in our community. We'll be meeting with our Senator representatives in Olympia on the 13th of February and invite you to join us in support of One Bothell. It's our duty to uphold the intent of the conservation easement and listen to the local community. We enjoy and we encourage you to continue to be proactive in Bothell's best interest and register for grants and bonds to acquire the Wayne Golf Course and partner with us on saving this precious land. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Next on the sign-up sheet is Dennis Skofstad. Is that right?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Only people in the Northwest, not Scottsdale. Everywhere else in the nation,
Not so?
no luck.
No chance.
I am Dennis Skofstad. I live in the village at Riverbend, across the street from the Wayne Golf Course. You may have seen the One Bothell website. If not, please visit and contact us. We'd be happy to talk to you formally or informally. One Bothell represents members of the community from Bothell and surrounding areas. We have been following the Wayne Golf Course owners' request that the city of Bothell rezone the clubhouse and parking area with more than a little interest. It's also with great apprehension that we learned the front and back nine are being put on the market. Since establishing ourselves at the start of the year, we have had over 6,000 hits from members of the community visiting our website. It is clear to us that people from Bothell, Snohomish, Redmond, Woodinville, Kirkland, Kenmore, and Seattle, all along the Burke-Gilman Trail, believe the Wayne land is important to them. At this time, 99% of our registered visitors have voted to reject the rezone and future developments on the Wayne land, and we're working to represent their interests. One Bothell's goal is to work with the city to purchase the Wayne Golf Course for the community to enjoy in perpetuity. This precious land along the Burke-Gilman Trail has been a recreational corridor since Joseph Blythe established it in 1931 for the local community. The property is unique. It serves as a view corridor adjacent to the Burke-Gilman Trail, Route 522, 96th Avenue, and forms a greenway along the Sammamish River, providing scenic value to the public, recreational open space, and precious habitat for fish and wildlife. The 40,000 residents of Bothell and visitors to the area can benefit from preserving this land in these ways. By making it parkland, we can help address Bothell's deficit of 675 acres of core parkland to meet the recommended national standards. In particular, we can help address the deficit in neighborhood parks and athletic fields. The property has ideal river access. The Sammamish River bisects the property. The property has ideal river access for water recreation activity. It could be an economic driver for visitors to the city of Bothell for recreation or leisure events. It provides enjoyment of natural resources and scenic beauty for the economic and social well-being of the state and its citizens. Preserving Wayne land has conservation value to fish and wildlife. We would like to work with you to reserve this land for the citizens of Bothell and King County.
Thank you, sir. Next on the list is James McNeil, I believe. Are you still here? I had James McNeil.
So do I give this to you now, Laura? My name is James McNeil. I live at 16314 Valhalla Drive. I want to thank everybody, council members, for having us here tonight and letting us have our voices heard. Most of you have spoken to me by phone and understand that we have a very distinct passion for trying to save this very unique space within our community. We did a records request, and in that records request we found a couple documents that pertain to the purchase or the offer to buy or sell the land of the front and the back nine, and which I've presented that to Laura. There is the offer by David Richards for the back nine dated November 12th, 2013. And there's also a document that reflects a valuation on the back nine that was done in June of 2013. And we're kind of speculating and we're guessing at this, but we think that sometime in late 2013 there was a decision by the city to not buy the back nine. We're not sure, but we're speculating on that. But our ultimate goal is not to debate, argue conservation easements. Our ultimate goal is to work with the city, the county, the state, the community at large, and try to find a way to save this piece of property for the citizens of Bothell. It's been in the conservation easement since 1996. It's been in our comprehensive plan since as far back as 2003 that I've seen personally. We have some good news tonight. We actually had a meeting last night with One Bothell with Ken Bellamy. He represents the owner, Steve, David, and Bruce on the front nine. The meeting was very positive, upbeat, and he said that the Richards would be willing to sit down and talk about the possibility of working with the city, the county, and the state to find a way to make this work for everybody. So I'm very, very pleased about that update to give you guys. I think that we could take that a step further, and if you guys open the dialogue with David Richards on the back nine, there's a possibility we could save that as well. It's not about just us. This is about future generations to come as well. We know we all have kids. We're all neighbors. We all live amongst one another, and we want to try to save this for everybody, not just the people today. So I'm going to leave you with, I've been in this community for 49 years, and forgive me, my mind is scrambled right now, but I want to leave you guys with something because I take this personally, especially after the loss we just had. I don't know if any of you guys remember Ken Behring, but Ken Behring came to our state and was going to take our football team. And the community stepped up, said no, found the resources through Mr. Paul Allen, and purchased that team back. There's another sports team that we lost called the Seattle Supersonics. And a lot of us grew up watching them, going to the games, going to the parade. I remember the parade, Lenny Wilkins and all. We did not listen to our community. We were not heard, and we lost that team forever. Let's not lose Wayne Golf Course, something that's been in our community since the beginning of our time, to something as simple as a piece of paper that says you have the right, you don't have the right. Let's take the time and find a way to make this happen as a community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else? We don't usually have clapping in the room. Everybody's looking for something to cheer for after last Sunday, maybe. Anyone else would like to address council this evening? Just show of hand. No. Okay. Thank you. Next on our agenda is actually our consent agenda. No items were pulled.
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second? Motion by Councilman Lamb, a second by Councilmember Agnew. All in favor? If you could place your vote. Get organized here. Have a clerk and display. Passes unanimously. Next on the agenda is an update on the RFA. So I'll turn it over to you.
It's more of a discussion rather than an update. As council's probably been made aware, we're getting close to, excuse me, the draft report coming out to the RFA committee members, and there will be some, I guess, corrections as far as Scrivener's errors and technical stuff, corrections made to it before the final report is released. One of the options that's included in the RFA as far as how it comes together is creating a financial equity where Bothell would be paying $1.5 million a year over, is it 5 or 7 years? 5 years. So I brought this up to look at thinking outside of the box options. I asked the city manager to look into, do we have any capacity in things like IT and HR and payroll and things like that where we could provide contracted service to help offset that 1.5 million if we were looking at, of the options presented, if we were looking at that option, what are some outside of the box thinking other than cash that we could possibly present as a council as an alternative? And that's the purpose of having this discussion tonight, is to hear from staff at a high level as to what type of capacity we have, and is there something that the three of us are missing that we could offer up in lieu of cash to help out. So that's where I'll turn to my co-members on the RFA Planning Committee to see if they have anything to add to that or offer some suggestions.
Any thoughts, Bill or Tom? Yep. Councilmember Evans.
Yes, that information was presented to the committee, actually the Finance Committee, a few weeks ago when our city manager reported on this equity. I think Woodinville and North Shore have reserves, financial reserves of approximately 11 million, 12 million that they're throwing into the pot to start off with. And we don't have that. I think we estimated about, $2.5 million or something. So that created this issue of, well, are you really, is this really equitable? So our staff analyzed that, and our finance officer and came back with an explanation that if you actually, because our assessed area is, and city manager, still correct me if I go wrong here, but it's our area that will assessed area is larger than the other two areas, and that we will through this 5-year or 7-year period, we will actually bring in more money than the other two areas through assessed value, and within that time period would offset the difference in what they're bringing to the table in cash reserves and what the city would actually be bringing through the assessed value. So I think that was discussed with the committee, and there was there was no decision made one way or another. The agreement was, the decision was, let's get the final report, see what it says. As Councilmember Spivey mentioned, I think there will be recommendations in that final report that talks about forming an RFA, potentially annexing to a district, contracting with somebody. There'll be various options that will be discussed in that report as to how you can approach this. Not only the equity, but just if an RFA is not formed, If someone would not be happy with what we're bringing to the table and they pulled out, what are the other options other than forming an RFA that could be considered in this matter? So the idea, I think we mentioned at the retreat that the report will be out February 19th, I think the draft report, which then the committee will look at, correct anything, staff will look at, correct any mistakes in there, things, and it will go back to be finalized and come back to the committee the first part of March. I can't remember what those dates I think we have 2 meetings set in March. First meeting would be where we would come back, the committee would come back, have the final report with any corrections, and discuss that report, talk about what our options are, what we would go back and recommend to our jurisdictions, and then there would even be another meeting in March that the public would then have heard the discussion of the RFA and would have opportunity to have input into it at that time. So there's a lot of things that are still being considered and reviewed, and so I think it's important that we get the final report or get the draft report, review that, make any corrections, and then get the final report and discuss it. And again, I want to emphasize to all the Bothell residents that the committee, which there's 3 council members on the committee, each agency has 3 members on the committee, and then each agency will take, those 3 members will take a recommendation back, or take the information back to the full count, to their councils, or in this case, 2 fire commissions, discuss with them that information, and I don't know how it will go from there, but what the recommendation will be, whether we proceed. And certainly at that time, I think we would have all the information. That would be an excellent time for the public to get very involved, because we've been talking back and forth about the RFA, but it's been a lot of discussion and questions and things, and we really haven't had things finalized. But once in March, we will have things finalized. That would be the time for the public to really become involved. They'd have all the information. And then as a city council, we will then make a decision what our position is about forming an RFA. The public can be aware of that, have input into that, and then we'll go from there. And we may make one decision, North Shore may make another decision, and Woodinville may make another decision. So we won't know until sometime later this spring as to what every agency has looked at and what their recommendation is how to proceed or not proceed, or what changes may be made, or that type of thing. So that's my understanding of the status of that committee and where we're at. And I think it's fine to discuss it now, but it would really be, once we have the full information in front of us and the different options, that would seem to me the best time that we'd all have everything that we would need in front of us to make a decision and discuss it.
Okay. Would you like to make a comment, Councilman Ragnu, as the 3rd member of that body?
Yes, I would. The goal of the RFA, the reason we went and looked at this issue was to try to get financial sustainability for the fire service in the future. The fire service is increasing dramatically, the financial cost annually. And we haven't been able to keep up. The RFA is a good move for us to do that. Unfortunately, it does put a little bit of extra taxes on the taxpayers, and I wish I could do something about that, but I can't. I think we have a good fire department. I think we have a really good fire department. Why don't we have a great fire department? You know, these firefighters are professionals. Don't think they're just knuckle draggers. I'll say that about them because I was one. But they are paid professionals. They have more knowledge about chemistry, about building construction, about hazardous materials, about fire behavior, about extrication from vehicles than most people would even consider. The way the RFA is going right now, I personally think that we're going to be out. That's just my feeling. Financially, the departments, they work differently than the municipalities. A department has to put money aside because when they get their tax revenue, they don't get it till April. So they try to keep the money in the bank to cover that lean time. And that's why there's such a disparity between what we're offering and what they have and what they're offering. You know, unfortunately, we went from having a good idea to getting it politically involved. And people all of a sudden started not looking at, can we build a fire department for the future, but what are you bringing to the table now? My analogy to that was I didn't bring a lot to the table in my wedding. My wife did, but that worked 30-some years ago, and we're still around. But unfortunately, some of the politicians want, what are you bringing to me now? And with that, and they're adamant about that. And with that being said, I don't think it's going to fly. I know we're receiving about $900,000 from the annexation that we picked up in Woodinville, and yet we're not doing anything to increase the services to those citizens, and I think that's a shame. I know that our training budget is woefully inadequate right now. We're the only fire department that I know of in the state that pays for water when they train. And these guys got to train. You don't have so many fires. I mean, the goal is to go in, not just put the fire out, but put the fire out with the least amount of damage. And the only way you learn that skill is to be in fires and do it, and do it, and do it, and do it. And then you get proficient at it, unfortunately. Our facilities are not up to speed. We have female firefighters that sometimes sleep out in bays. Give me a break. I don't think we're taking them and thinking about them the way I do. I know you don't, because I was there once. We're going to have to spend some money to improve our fire department. And we're going to have to spend $20-30 million bucks. We're going to have to build a station in the south end. We're going to have to retrofit some of the stations we have. We're going to have to increase our training budget. We're going to have to do a number of things. We need to think about it. We need to think about it really hard. Whether we give $1.5 million over 5 years to the RFA committee or whether we spend $30 million over the next 10 years in the city of Bothell, we need to take a serious look at this. And I think that's about all I have to say.
Well, you've made it clear how you feel. I appreciate that. Made a couple comments. I'd love to ask a couple questions, so maybe just more of an open dialogue that we'll have while we're up here during this time. You said we're about to be out. Are you meaning Bothell is going to be out, or?
You know, what I get a sense from the Finance Committee, and Tammy's been there with me, and we've been talking one way and everybody's been listening another way, basically. There's been a breakdown in, I don't think there's been a breakdown in communication. It's just they're as stubborn as we are. But I think most of the agencies want to see Bothell come in and contribute a little bit more so they can have a reserve fund so at January they can pay for 4 months. And they feel that that's a priority for them, and they want to continue to put reserves in there. And without us stepping to the plate, the feeling I have from the Finance Committee is they're going to walk.
The rest of the...
The rest of the agencies.
Yeah, and are they going to form something themselves, or it's just...
They can't right now because the law states it has to be a contiguous line. So we're the people in the middle. I mean, there is legislation in right now that a city can form an RFA if they want to form an RFA. You know, that's an option, but that would, again, put a little bit more undue burden, I think, on the taxpayers. I mean, paying $30 million over the next 10 years, it's going to be a burden on the taxpayers anyway.
Yeah. So in your voice, I hear frustration, maybe a little anger at the state of our current fire department. We're to blame, meaning the 7 of us up here, and councils before us, and councils before us, and councils before us. Where is your frustration? Is it just overall, or are you literally saying
I think we've let it go down. I think our priorities are a little different. I think police is a priority. Absolutely. There's no question in my mind about that. But I think right beside the police should be the fire service. And unfortunately, they're down a couple stepchildren. And I think we're at all fault for that. But I think we have the potential to have a great fire department. I mean, these guys need to train. There's no doubt in my mind. The only way you get proficient at CPR is to do it constantly so it's in your muscle memory. They need that.
Mayor, to go along with that, it's inherent in the fire service that no matter what the cards you're dealt, you're going to make it work. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's just the way the fire service is. And unfortunately, they've been making it work, and it's on us to they're out of resources to make it work, continue to make it work. Now it's up to us to give them resources to make it work. And it's, do we do it in the form of an RFA? Do we do it in the form of becoming a fire district or merging into a fire district or a tax increase through levies or whatever? But we got to fix the problem that they've been fixing, and now they've run out of resources. We have to give them the resources to do it.
I'd love to hear from both of you, or all three of you, the composition, because I think as far as four of us are outside of this RFA committee, but I really felt if we were going to be successful on the RFA, we put our best foot forward in the regards that we have 2 firemen of the 3 going forward to speak on the behalf of Bothell, right? So what's the composition of the rest of the RFA committee? Are they against firemen? Are they for fire?
No, there's one current active duty firefighter. There's one retired battalion chief from a few years ago. There's one retired LA firefighter who's in his 90s, so you know how long ago it was when he retired. And then most of the others are commissioners, former council members that are now commissioners, things like that. So the fire service representation it's not half, maybe a third.
A third. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are, we started off trying to make a fire department and build for the future, and a lot of people got caught in the present. You know, we're going to get the final numbers back. What the final numbers say, is it going to be worth, can we do it? Can we not do it? We're not going to know any of that till we get the final numbers back. But I think we need to look at options that we might have to partake. Because personally, I feel it'd be a lot easier for us to be in the RFA and let the RFA grow the department back, which it doesn't. I'm saying that wrong. I'm not dissing the department. The department's a good department. It's a very good department. It's always been a very good department. I just think that with our chief and with the personnel that we have, we can be a great department. I mean, a great department.
I agree.
Yeah. Councilmember Sandberg?
Well, hearing your thoughts, it makes me think about other options, and you've talked about that as well. You've all talked about that, and if the RFA is not approved by the other entities, what is it that we can do to make our good department great? And if that means asking the voters to approve an operating levy to do things like make facility upgrades and upgrades to the training budget and other upgrades, then I think that's what we need to think about doing, because we do have a great department, but they need to have the support. And I think that we could make the case. It's all about making the case to the public and asking them to support essential services. And so that's another option that we could be thinking about.
And you're right, and it's going to take resources. Now, how do we get those resources? But what you said was essential services, a core service. We shouldn't be going to a voted levy for a core service. We should be, that should be coming from our budget up front. Public safety. Every one of us is a supporter of public safety, and so we need to be more mindful of taking care of public safety up front, and then shake the rest of it out after that. Because it doesn't matter what condition a park is in, or another building, or whatever else. If the people that are meant to respond can't do it because of their poor building, and they don't have the resources to do their job properly or to be trained properly, it doesn't matter how nice the rest of the city looks if they can't do their job for us. So we have to provide the resources. And do we do it initially through a bond or a levy? Maybe. Do we annex into a fire district? Possibly. Do we form our own RFA with SNO 10 in the city? Maybe. But there's options out there. We just have to figure out which one fits us. If this whole RFA, this 4-partner RFA, doesn't fly, we have to figure out what's the best option for our citizens so that we provide the most resources for our firefighters.
I don't disagree. I think we have a lot of options ahead to consider.
Councilmember Rayam.
So I'm sitting here trying to think over what I've looked at in the budgets and what we've seen in the annual fire report. You know, we get a report from the chief. And I guess this is rather surprising to me. It's news to me. I knew that they lost some training. I didn't know that the facilities were in bad shape, and I didn't know that, you know, female firefighters have to sleep in a bay if they want to, not, or whatever, for whatever reason they're doing that. You know, this is all news to me, and I understand that the RFA is coming. But I think what I'm hearing, what I would really like to know is from the fire department, what's going on, because they have not communicated that in any way that I have seen in the written documentations that we get from the fire department. I didn't know that we were having a problem. So instead of focusing on how we're going to get out of it, I'd like to know what we're in to begin with, just to understand a little better what the deal is.
They're going to do what they need to do. They're going to have some boots at that house within 7 minutes to 9 minutes every time, and they're not going to complain too much, because that's just the nature of them.
Chief Van Horn and the fire department, they do a wonderful job, and they're not like Councilmember Agnew is saying, it's not in their nature to go out and complain about it. It's more about, we got a problem, let's work around it and move forward, and that's just the way the fire service is, and it's come to a head. They've done so much with we continue to do so much more with so much less that they can't do anymore. We got to support them. So,
Councilmember Lamb.
So I appreciate the report back from the community members, from all three of the committee members, and I think I was mayor when you guys were appointed to that committee, and I think the intention at the time of the whole council was that you three were probably the best qualified to be participants in that process and to keep an eye on that process. And we, I think what we're hearing tonight is that there's some concern that you feel like the process may come to an outcome where other people don't want to move forward. So in advance of our retreat, I asked a couple of questions about the fire service and kind of where we were at. And I think there's a couple things that should be said about it. Is that one, in terms of capital expenditures, I think fire, when I first was elected to council, I went to all the different fire stations. I went to all of our different public facilities and took a look at them. And at that time, when I was first elected, our public works facility was pretty much in a shed. It was off of the Bothell Everett Highway. It was a really weird facility that we were leasing from somebody at the time, who then later became angered with the city and terminated the lease on 30 days notice. So we kind of had to scramble as a public works department and move into that. And, I met with our public works guys. Those are great people who do great work that's critically important. And when we have a snowstorm, those are our first responders. Those are the people who keep our streets clean. They work through the night. They're great folks. And they showed me what they had. And we resolved as a council to say, you know what, that's not acceptable. We need to do something better in terms of that capital facilities. Prior to my coming on council, past councils in our community had a vision that our police station should be a really wonderful beacon in our community. It should be something that when we interview officers to come to the city of Bothell, they look at our police station, they're like, you know what, that's a place that I want to serve. And it used to be in the business park. It was literally like you could be leasing one space next to it, and some perp could be being brought in next to you in the thing, and that, who knows what that did to leasing values around those different properties. But we as a community came together and said, you know what, we're a good city, we're a great city, we need to have a police department that's reflective of that. And then, I've also been to our community development department and our public works trailer. And that was the impetus behind our city hall. Is we're like, look, this building is 80 years old. We just spent hundreds of thousands of dollars fixing a leaky roof, People have bathrooms that are inadequate, so we're going to bring together all the people in our community under one roof and have a state-of-the-art facility. I completely agree with Councilmember Spivey and Councilmember Agnew's expression that on the capital side, our fire department is overdue. I think our fire department is the next group that needs to have that. And the question that I asked in advance of our retreat was to say, what does that cost? And I think Councilor Agnew hit the nail on the head. We need to look at what we're comparing. What is our capital expenditures if we don't do an RFA? What are we going to be shouldering on our side if we don't do an RFA in terms of improvements to existing facilities where they're inadequate, and to what do we do about the south end? You know, right now we're pretty much relying on mutual aid, and mutual aid, for those who aren't in kind of local government jargon, just means we have a good relationship with our neighbors, and our neighbors, when we can't make it, step in. We have that for law enforcement. We have that for fire. But, you know, it's kind of like borrowing food from a neighbor. If you're always borrowing sugar and they never come back, you know, over time they'll get annoyed, and they'll say, wait a minute, this isn't really a fair relationship. I'm getting that. So I want to have a clear understanding of what that, you know, what our capital needs are, and we got some good answers on that. I don't unfortunately have my retreat packet with me, but I'd like to keep that in mind. And I hope you guys go back to the committee and say, you know what, the Bothell City Council has an open mind. They're fair people. I think we're fair people. And we want to, you know, they're committed to seeing a really good department, and they want to have a dialogue with you and look at what our capital needs are and compare those to what that would be like in an RFA. Because at the end of the day, you know, we're elected by the people in the city of Bothell, and our job is to protect them and to provide the best service that we can in our city, regardless of what form that takes. So I hope that's a message that you would take back to them, at least from this 1 out of 7 council members, that we're open to that conversation and that we'd like to, you know, we're going to explore it based on what our models are going forward, what they would be like with them, what they would be like apart from them, and have that conversation. And I think that on the capital side, I totally agree. On the operating side, I don't necessarily, you know, I don't have as much information. I'm at a professional disadvantage to Councilmember Spivey and Councilmember Agnew. I take you at your word and your understanding and your depth of knowledge on those issues. But I know, I mean, I know just from what I see with my eyes, and on the capital side, our fire department is due, and they're overdue for some relief in that area. So that's my hope, that you guys will take that message back to them and let them know that I for one would like to hear more and would like to see what comes back, and I hope that's helpful to you.
Councilmember Evans.
Yeah, just in conclusion for me, this city, all cities, this nation is coming out of an economic recession where we had to cut back all departments, and we did that. We left positions vacant. Fortunately, this city had good insight and had set money aside that we were able to weather that difficult storm. And we really, I don't believe, had to cut any positions. We left some vacant positions unfilled to get through that. But I think this council as a whole, we realize that the staff did an excellent job getting us through that. And the previous council, even before I was on the council, did excellent planning to set some money aside for that. So we're all coming out of that economic recession, and we're getting better. But all departments had to do with less during that time based on the available funds that we had. But with that said, I want to reassure the residents of Bothell that our public safety, we're very fortunate to have the police and fire department that we have. And I would be willing to put our public safety up against any community in the area. And I just want to assure the residents that you are safe. We're in good hands with the public safety people we have. In fact, correct me if I'm wrong, Finance Director, but it's my understanding of the general fund, about 52% of the general fund goes to public safety.
Is that right, Sandy?
I'm sorry to say that I don't know the exact number that it is. I know it's greater than 50%, but
I just looked at it a couple weeks ago.
Okay, I believe them.
And it's over 50% of our general fund, which is the operating fund of the city, goes to police and fire. So those are our number one priorities, Public safety is our number one priority. And the rest of the departments and things, you know, we spread it as far as we can. So I think I agree with my colleagues in that we are going to have to do something because our public safety costs are going up rapidly. And our revenue is not staying up with that. And so somehow, whether it's an RFA, whether it's a district, whether it stays right here within this city, as a council, we are going to have to look at public safety costs and see how we can continue to fund those and provide this great service that we're providing now. So that is a decision that this council will be faced with over the next several months. But it's the majority of our budget goes to public safety right now. And so somehow we've got to look at how we can live within our budget and still provide the excellent service that we do and provide all the other services that we have to provide. So I'm looking forward to the solutions or the options that come back from our study committee, get those and take a look at it, and we will have a discussion on all of those options as to what are the alternatives, what's the best approach. But something has to be done for our public safety. There's no doubt about it in my mind.
Great, thank you. Mr. Agnew.
You know, I'd also like to tell the public that we do have a very, very good fire department. Our fire department saves about 60% of the people they find in witness ventricular fibrillation, which means their heart is stopped. So over half of those people that they find when their heart is stopped, they can restart them, and those people walk out of the hospital. When I started in this career, we saved about 20%. We increased it to 30% with paramedics, and that stagnated for 20 years through, and then with research and training, we bumped it up to 60%. And I bet we can go a little higher. But we're going to need the resources to do it. But our fire department's a great fire department.
Straight from Mr. Medic 1. Thank you, Tom. Thank you. Del, maybe you can wrap it up and then we'll jump into executive.
I got to echo what Tom said about it. We have a very good, great fire department, however you want to phrase it. And when I'm out there in my job as a firefighter and I'm interacting with our fire department, I'm proud to interact with our fire department. It's a sense of pride that I get to go out and do the career path that I've chosen alongside these guys through training or other events, and sometimes it's actual mutual aid. We're coming up to meet in Kirkland and work side by side on incidents, and so I'm proud to work with them. And they are a very good department. I would be happy to have any of those members work with me in Bellevue, and I would be very happy to come up and work with them. Chief Van Horn, I worked with him many moons ago down in Renton. He's a great individual then, great leader now. I couldn't say enough about our organization, and it's been said we need to give them the support, and the thing is we need to make that investment now. That's when we need to make it. We need to make it now, and so I look forward to this report, and I look forward to any ideas of alternatives from council to move to the RFA committee other than just cash money. Maybe we do buy some property in the south end that benefits multiple jurisdictions. I don't know. But I look forward to some feedback on that, and please route it in the proper way via email through the city manager. But I look forward to that, and I appreciate the discussion that we had here at the dais.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for the positive discussion. We will be going into executive session for around 45 minutes. Looks like we'll return with potential action after. Pardon?
The basis, need to state the basis for the record.
The basis for the record is real estate matters. So we will be in executive session until approximately 7:45.
I think it's only one copy. Hey, Laura, there's just the one.
Bothell City Council is adjourned.
The fact that someone actually watched 5 minutes of blank screen, that's what you like.
The 459. I hear some noises in the background. Bye. I'm not sure. You got $5 million more than we were counting. Any